Welcome back. Ireland kick off the 2024 Six Nations tonight with a historic trip to Marseille to meet the mighty France.
It's all here on Virgin Media One tonight, and joining us with the very latest, fresh from his trip to the training camp in Portugal, is our Mediterranean correspondent Tommy Martin, along with Munster legend Alan Quinlan.
Yes, it's France against Ireland in the Six Nations, but not as we know it. With Stade de France in Paris being readied for the Summer Olympics, we find ourselves here in the Stade Velodrome in Marseille on the Mediterranean coast in the south of France for this blockbuster Six Nations opener. Two nations, of course, looking to bounce back from heartbreak in the World Cup quarter-finals just a few short months ago on French soil as well. But whoever wins this evening will, you'd imagine, become favourites for this season's Six Nations, so there's a lot at stake already. The game will be live on Virgin Media One this evening, and Alan Quinlan, as always, will be on commentary duty. Alan, great to be here in this fantastic stadium. You have experience of being here before. Some Irish fans will have been before as well, and the memories perhaps not happy ones.
Well, not here as a player, Tommy, but 2 years ago when Leinster lost that European final here to La Rochelle, and loads of Irish fans and Leinster fans here. Obviously, it's an incredible atmosphere. It's a wonderful stadium. It's different, as you say. Normally, this game is on in Stade de France in Paris, so it's a unique kind of occasion. Opening game Friday night of the Six Nations. Both teams, psychologically, I think that's probably intriguing to know where they're at after the disappointments of the World Cup. But the atmosphere will be incredible here tonight. It's a wonderful stadium, and hopefully we'll get a cracker of a game, and from an Irish point of view, a really good performance and a win, hopefully.
Yeah, it's interesting that France are on the road for this whole Six Nations campaign, and they've brought Ireland here specifically. I think the two other venues for their other home games are Lyon and Lille, because they reckon this is their favourite ground in the south of France, where the rugby heartland is, and the fans we expect to be really passionate and noisy tonight. So let's talk about Ireland, Alan, and what's your sense about this Ireland team? As I said, coming off that heartbreak against New Zealand in the World Cup quarter-final, a settled-looking lineup in some ways, and then in other ways, fresh faces, not least Jack Crowley taking over that big job, the job of replacing Jonathan Sexton.
What a job it is to replace Johnny Sexton. Yeah, of course, Jack Crowley, big responsibility and pressure on him. It's particularly in an occasion like this, you'd love to have him getting that start at home in the Six Nations. Maybe there'll be less pressure with no Jonathan Sexton around, but he's a good player, Jack Crowley. I think he would have learnt a lot from Johnny, and he has got to try and control the game, keep things simple. But I still believe, and I was trying to think about what way Ireland will play, and I think they're not going to change up their game plan. They're still going to try and have that attack. Gary Ringrose pulling out this week, as well as a disappointment. No Mac Hansen. So 3 changes, significant changes in the back line for Ireland. But look, I think Andy Farrell has been pretty positive about their approach and the way they'll play the game. They're going to come up against undoubted power in the French team, that they're so physical. No Dupont for France, but the other changes you see, players coming in, is Robbie Henshaw, 13. I think he's so much experience there. Calvin Nash getting a start on the wing. And of course Joe McCarthy up front, where I believe it'll all be happening. His power and physicality.
Talk to us about Joe McCarthy. So I mean, he's only 22 years old. He is a big boy, and he's really burst onto the Irish scene in the last year or so. And what all the press conferences Andy Farrell and some of the other players have been saying is he brings huge energy to everything he does on and off the field. And you see him on the field for Leinster in the last few weeks. He's such a presence. So is he going to be a big player for Ireland this evening?
I think so, and I said this a few weeks ago. Who plays in the second row? I said Joe McCarthy starts, and it's whoever goes with him. There's a lot of good players there, and it's great to have him emerge now as someone who's in form. He's played really well with Leinster. He has physicality and power, but he also has really good skill set. And when you come up, I think historically in the last couple of times we played France, particularly away from home, we've struggled a little bit at times, even though the games have been Ireland have been in the games. It's just that power and physicality and the type of player they can pick, and that's what Fabien Galthié has gone again for, that power and that physicality. So I think Joe McCarthy is deserving of his start. Again, It's a difficult place to come to kind of start your first Six Nations game, but I'd be very confident that he can do well and have a real impact in this game.
Just on France, again, I mean, for them, I was looking at some of the headlines this morning, and they're also referring to that disappointment that they had. You know, and for them being the host nation of the World Cup, it was an extreme disappointment. You mentioned Dupont not being there, their talisman as well, but they have a lot of in-form players. A lot of the Bordeaux guys we saw playing well in Europe are back in there, especially in the back areas. So what are you expecting from them, and how do you expect them to bounce back from that World Cup?
Well, I think for both sides it's about trying to dust yourself up, not looking the past, and that's the challenge, and would have been the challenge. I'm sure it will still be in the back of their minds, but if you start the Six Nations well, for France to win at home, start off, maybe challenge and win a Grand Slam, because I think the team that wins tonight will be challenging for the championship. That's pretty obvious. But you know, there is familiarity. There's no Dupont, but Maxime Lucu and Jalibert at out half. Then you have Mofana on the wing and Damien Penaud. So there's 4 Bordeaux guys in there. A certain amount of cohesion that they will have. And I'm sure they'll be pretty determined to start here. The crowd will give them a lift. That is certainly a help. But undoubtedly, it'll be really interesting to see what France are like without Dupont, because I think he's probably one of the best rugby players we've ever seen. His all-round game is just incredible. So it should be an unbelievable game, but Fabien Galtier really want his team to start from the word go, start really well. And for Ireland, I think it's about being in the game and getting a good start themselves, but should be a cracker of a game, Tommy.
Would you venture a prediction?
That's a tough one,
yeah,
obviously.
Because it is tough. Ireland have only won 3 times in French soil against France in the Six Nations in over 50 years.
Yeah, and that'll tell you
that often.
That'll tell you the task in hand. And but if Ireland, I think, if they stick to what we know they can do, and bring the quality. Obviously, they're missing a few players, but France are as well. I think they have a great chance. But on paper, you'd have to go with France slightly. But I have a really good feeling that Ireland have a real crack here tonight.
Brilliant stuff, Alan. We have been just disturbing the silence here in the Stade Velodrome. The only noise is from the lads cutting the grass on the pitch, which looks in absolutely immaculate condition. It will be a hell of a lot noisier here come 8 o'clock Irish time and kick-off. Coverage begins on Virgin Media 1 from 7 o'clock.
Thanks, Tommy. So plenty of Six Nations action on Virgin Media this weekend, which, as Tommy said, of course, starts with France versus Ireland on Virgin Media 1 tonight at 7 p.m.